with you.
All right, good job.
Hey.
Go play, okay?
Hey. Oh, hello.
All right, you guys. Sorry for my chair squeaking there, and yeah, that was a good guest appearance, little baby Optima. But
Mini Optima?
but what's going on, YouTube? Today we do not even have our typical intro. I do not have enthusiasm to do so. Today's a sad day, and I anticipated being a little disappointed, but I felt like I didn't really anticipate feeling the way I feel. As far as the future of Legends of Runeterra, because I have some pretty negative thoughts now moving forward, and we'll get into all that. We'll get into all that, but nevertheless, guys, we're gonna talk about patch 2.9, the one our first patch of the Guardians of the Ancient expansion. That is going to be the one with the recently introduced champions, not Talia. Oh my God, Aurelia, Malphite, and Zillion, as well as a lot of new followers and a few new followers and stuff. And yeah. As we all know at this point in the community, anyone who's been playing this game a decent bit, Aurelia Azir has really put the game into an interesting place where a lot of strategies can exist because of the way Aurelia Azir works. And even if it does exist against Aurelia Azir, you probably have a poor matchup into Thresh Nasus, Draven Ezreal, TLC, all these other decks. So the meta feels very polarized right now with all these matchups and stuff. And for that reason, there's been a lot of complaining, and even more so than the polarized matchups, there's been a lot of complaining about Azir Aurelia specifically, and pretty warranted. The deck is playing into a meta that's nearly entirely trying to counter it, and it's still powering its way to good consistency, high win rates, and just a lot of frustration for players considering that you can like wipe the deck's board and then the next turn blade dance, and it felt like you didn't do anything significant. So yeah, just a lot of interesting things that have arose with this new expansion that have mostly sadly been negative. I feel like even the skins that were recently introduced got completely overshadowed by a polarizing meta that was being held hostage by Azir Aurelia being the main culprit of the polarizing meta. And thankfully today I have some awesome friends of mine here with me. My buddy Lee, my buddy We the Peoples, and my buddy, I love you too, Jacoby, and my buddy Mega Goofball here with me today. And I do have my son recording with me. I really wanted to provide you guys a post reaction to this patch because I think it's something that, one, we need to discuss. Two, you guys may want to hear my thoughts since I am someone who really enjoys talking about the meta. I have like a series called Meta Assessment. So it's something I enjoy talking about, whether good or bad. And so yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video. As always, you can show some love, like, comment, whatever. I would really like to hear comments on this video because I want to hear how you guys felt about this patch, because I feel like it's the first time I have felt pessimistic about the future of Legends of Runeterra. This is the first time where I'm kind of like, where does my future with this game lie if this is the direction we're heading down? And that's not something I really thought I would be doing today. So definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts. Am I being dramatic? Let me know. I'm open to all constructive criticism, so definitely let me know. But yeah, like I said, I got my buddies here, Lee, We the Peoples, and Mega Goofball. If you guys all want to say what's up to the people.
Yo, what's going on, guys?
And yes, all right, so I think
sorry.
we can sorry go.
No, I was just gonna say I'm sorry, guys. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of enthusiasm here.
No,
Like,
there's not. There's not.
Just looking at looking at the patch notes, I think everybody would understand why there's not a lot of enthusiasm going on right now, because we're just trying to analyze like how how this really impacts anything, to be honest.
Yeah. And we're going to get into that. So real quickly, though, I just want to say one thing, guys. We kind of have been sitting in this call for a while, so these aren't super fresh thoughts. We've been able to sit in our thoughts for a while. So, and that was one thing I wanted to do. I didn't want to give you guys just an immediate post reaction because I feel like I may be a little maybe a little disingenuous with how impactful these changes are. But I think after sitting and evaluating my own perception of this, listening to my lovely friends here's perceptions of it as well, and also seeing people respond on Twitter to this as well, I think I feel confident in the way that I feel about this patch, and I think the rest of us would say the same. So don't take this as some, oh, you're being too reactionary or anything. I feel like we've all been able to kind of sit with this and really think about it for a bit. Obviously, at the end of the day, the final say-so will be once these changes go live and we're able to really feel how significant they feel. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of us have played this game enough to know what changes would have been impactful. And so, yeah, I just wanted to get that out the way, that I didn't want to just throw opinions out at you guys. I wanted to be able to really try to get you guys some good, concise thoughts. And here we are. So my first thing, I'll start with you, We the Peoples. I just wanted to kind of go around with everyone, and then we can circle back to me. And then I'll have a secondary follow-up question, and then we can just start throwing our thoughts out there. And I don't want to make this video too long, but just give me one adjective. When you saw the patch notes, you went through them, give me one adjective that explained how you felt.
I feel like the biggest adjective that everybody's saying right now in the community is just like disappointment. That's
Disappointment.
Like the biggest.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like the biggest thing that everybody's feeling right now.
Yep.
Because it's like you just look at it and you're just like, damn, we're gonna have to deal with these patch notes for at least another what, month?
Yeah, and
Or,
then
like
to seasonals.
probably at least another like 2 weeks to the least, but like maybe another month.
Yep. Yep. All right, you Mega Goofball.
I was gonna say disappointed too.
Disappointed. Yep.
Yeah, but I think the one thought that came to my mind when I saw the patch notes was like, is this a joke? Like, is this an April Fool?
Yep. Yep. And then you, Lee, how'd you feel?
Yeah, my thought is same as Mega Goofball.
Yeah.
Just disappointment.
It
And,
looks
yeah,
kind
I
of like
think
a
this-
joke. It doesn't seem serious. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, just to give a different adjective, because I would say probably first was disappointment, because I already had low expectations, and yeah, somehow those weren't even met. So yeah, I would say low. Disappointment's probably the first one, but another one that came to me, and I feel like I'm feeling this more than I'm feeling disappointed now, is concerned. I'm actually concerned about Riot's devs team's ability to actually properly balance their game. I no longer have confidence in them, and that's a very concerning thought for a game that initially received nothing but high praise for the way that it was being balanced, the way that it was initially made, and a lot of decisions that were being made. So yeah, I think concern kind of captures a decent bit of what that disappointment kind of is turning into. A lot of us are concerned, especially those of us who are content creators who put a lot of time, effort, and energy into this. We don't want to see the game die. And that may, once again, may sound dramatic to some people, but if you can't balance your game, how is your game not going to die? So it's just a thought. It's definitely just a thought. But moving on from that, let's go over what in the balance patch looked the worst to all of us. So let me actually pull up these balances and just go over them super quickly, so then we can discuss what exactly in there bothered us. So give me 1 second to set this up. There we go. Bam, bam. All right. So first and foremost, we got the two buffs. We got Talia's, her level 1 stats are now changed from 2-4 to 3-5, and her leveled stats changed from 3-5 to 4-6. We got Malphite. He no longer needs to summon 12 plus mana of landmarks. He needs to summon 10 plus mana of landmarks. And this was done because they said both Talia and Malphite have struggled to find a home in the meta. We like how decks play. We like how the decks play, and these buffs and add more power into the champions in a way that shouldn't drastically change their archetype. Talia should feel a little more sturdy, and Malphite should level up more consistently. And then from there, we got some nerfs, and that was Blossoming Blade being turned into a 5-mana unit, but buffing its attack stat to 4, and then Inspiring Martial being turned into a 6-mana unit, but buffing its it gets to just keeps the 4-6. Or did they change it to 4-5? Oh no, they changed it to 4-5. Okay. So they're changing its they're making it a 6 cost and changing its stats to 4-5. So and the justification here is it's become clear that Aurelia Azir is too powerful. Ultimately, we decided to focus on changes on Inspiring Martial and Blossoming Blade to ensure our changes focus on this deck. We want to reduce the amount of collateral damage to other decks such as Azir Burn and Azir Lucian. If someone wants to provide me, I should have actually looked it up, but I would love to see the Azir Lucian play rates. And then the thing to keep in mind is that Azir Burn, so Azir Noxus, doesn't use a very impactful card that a lot of people wanted to see nerfed in Emperor's Deus. So it's interesting to me that they alluded to a deck that doesn't use one of the most impactful cards in Emperor's Deus in Azir Burn here, and then the other deck, Azir Lucian. I have not seen this deck once since Azir Aurelia came out, so very interesting card to reference in their balance notes. But both of which we think are healthy for the game. This specific deck will remain on our watch list, and we'll continue to monitor its performances over time. It took quite some time to get this balance changes. So for them to say it's a deck we're going to continue to monitor, that means that we'll monitor it but not do anything about it for months, or for a month at least. So that's also leaves a bit to be desired, because monitoring doesn't, like, if monitoring meant, hey, if it still feels bad initially, we'll hit you with a hot fix, that would be completely different. But we know that's no longer the reality that we live in with our Runeterra dev team. So very interesting thoughts there. I guess I can kick things off and we can go in opposite order with this one. The thing that was most frustrating to me initially looking at these nerfs, I have to say, is Blossoming Blade. And I sent out a tweet even about it, just in all caps, like, what? For me, there's been few decks as polarizing as Azir Aurelia. We do know that as Karma, even like Bilgewater at its peak with Nab, and then even the other deck I'll allude to is like TF Fizz. We know that all those decks reach some pretty high peaks as far as being extremely polarizing and frustrating for players to play against. But that's pretty much just those decks, and then like Azir Aurelia you could throw in there. I may be missing a few decks, but I feel like those are kind of the main ones that have really just strong held a meta hostage in the way that Azir Aurelia kind of has as well. And it's just so interesting to me that so many people can be throwing out, people who play this game day in and day out, content creators, competitive players, can be throwing out all these ideas for nerfing this deck, and that I somehow managed to not see one that alluded to wanting this card changed. And I honestly, I don't care. Even if this is an impactful change to Blossoming Blade, it's not a pot that I refuse to believe, and maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I refuse to believe this is an impactful change to the real parts of the deck that feel bad. The parts of the deck that feel bad, in my opinion, are the fact that it's too easy to keep your Azir and Aurelia safe with cards like Lead and Follow, and the other spell that, like, it takes the card back. I can't think of its name, but it takes the card back, and then you can play a 3-cost unit through the 1-mana spell you get afterwards. I think it's too easy to use those cards to protect your very impactful champions, and then the way that the deck curves into Deus, into Azir, that also feels bad. Those are like, and then I would say Inspiring Marshal as well. I just did not hear anyone saying, and even Homecoming got a lot of hate. Some people hating Sparring Student, some people hating Green Glade Duo. I just did not hear one person say that Blossoming Blade was the card that needed to be changed. And for that reason, I think this just shows the disconnect between the devs and the community. That the devs are almost seeing a completely different game than us, where this looked like a card to them that needed to be changed, whereas like 8 other cards had priority, please do something about it, over this when it came to what I was seeing within the community. So that's where I have to say, for me, the card that made me go, what the fuck, first was seeing that Blossoming Blade was the card that got nerfed. And I'm sorry, there's no other way to put it. Looking at this card being the one that they changed was just like, wow, what game am I playing? If that's the card for them, that was like, yeah, that's going to do it. That's going to get them, boys. Azir really is going to fall in play rate, because that Blossoming Blade was just like killing the game, and I just, that's not the game I was playing. So I guess I can go over to you, Lee. Was it those buffs? Was it the nerfs? Was it Blossoming Blade? Was it Inspiring Marshal? Or was it something that you just didn't see in the nerfs, such as like the fact that TLC and Threshnasis didn't get touched? What for you was just like, wait, what? When looking at this patch?
I think that's that. Yeah, they didn't even touch Emperor Deus. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it curves so well into Aurelia or Azir, like, and so, yeah, I can't really say much. It's like I'm dumbfounded by the decision they made just to nerf the, what's the card name? That they nerf, Blossom.
Yeah, Blossoming Blade. Yeah.
Yeah, like no one complained about that card. It's like,
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, lots of complaining about Emperor's Deus, especially the way it curved. And obviously, like, we know the justification is them trying to say that Azir Lucian needs to exist, because you can't say it's Azir Burn, because Azir Burn doesn't run Deus, and it needs to play a unit each turn, because it's all about going wide and trying to overpower you with cheap units with decent attack stats. So Azir Burn can't afford to play Deus. So Deus is the only other deck that they could be alluding to as Azir Lucian. And please, if I'm mistaken, maybe because I'm chilling in Plat, where are people playing Azir Lucian? Once again, huge disconnect, but we'll leave it there. What about you, Goofball? What part of this patch had you most just like scratching your head?
To point your attention first to them pointing out Azir Lucian. I think a lot of people agree when I say that Azir Aurelia just feels like a better Azir Lucian.
Exactly, and that's why we're not seeing
It's
the
just
deck.
a better thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
he
thing.
is a
Like, so the fact that they brought up Azir Lucian just feels like they're finding an excuse, like any excuse they can throw, just to not nerf Deus. So it kind of also feels to me like I don't know. It feels like deep down they know that this isn't the right nerf to go, like the right nerf to make.
Yep. I agree with that, and it also feels to me, just to follow up your point, I really agree with that point. It also feels to me that they're so defensive out of nowhere over the initial designs of their cards. Like, no, this is fine. This is balanced. Like, what? Like, no, we need to keep it this way so that this can exist or that can exist. Like, they feel just so much more defensive over stuff, and I don't know where that's coming from, why that needs to be that way, or why it exists, because it's not good. It's not good for the game to have devs that are defensive over the designs of cards, especially when we're getting balance changes as infrequent as we are. It's not healthy for us to then end up in these scenarios where they seem very defensive over not changing stuff, especially when people were most happy with them when they were changing a lot of stuff. So it's just so interesting. Very defensive turn of events for our dev team, and I'm very perplexed as to where that energy is coming from. And I get they have to be succumb to a lot of negativity generally, especially at the beginning of a new deck being a little polarizing. Like, they're subjected to a ton of negativity, and that's where I don't want to pile on in the hate or anything. But at the end of the day, though, you kind of know that comes with the job. And you also know if you're doing things correctly, the biggest voices in the community will make sure you hear it, because that's where we were previously. So you know what you're getting into, and yeah, it's just interesting that they're now being so defensive over card designs, when that was not a thing previously. It absolutely did not feel like a thing in the past. They were like so willing to continue to try. Like, remember Hush getting changed like what felt like 6 times? Like, they used to be like, all right, let's work on this together, let's figure out what feels right. And now it feels like it's more so like, we're gonna do it this way because we think it's fine this way. And it's like very interesting how that's changed. And what about you, We the Peoples?
Yeah, I have a few more points.
Oh, okay, you can keep going.
Yeah, my bad.
No,
And
no,
also
you're
it
fine.
feels like, yeah, it feels like they're not targeting the main issue of the deck, which is the Sand Soldier generation. Like, with the Blossoming Blade nerf, like, sure, it goes to 5 mana, but the deck would just find another way to generate so. And it's still gonna be as strong. Like, at most they cut Blossoming Blade the 2 off, and then they run something else that enables the deck in its place.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just feel, yeah, I agree with you. I think getting, as long as you're blade dancing with the Deus down, very few other things really matter, and you can still get that from the other follower that blade dances, the 2/1 unit. You can still get that.
Ribbon Dancer.
Yeah, Ribbon Dancer. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can still get that from that. So yeah, because like this is a deck that a lot of people have alluded to. They watch their opponent misplay and they still lose to it. So I think making changes that aren't extremely impactful, such as this Blossoming Blade change, just don't make sense. Because yeah, that's one of the most feels bad things in a card game or any game, is that you watch someone make mistakes, but they're using something, they're doing something, because it's like in Call of Duty, when there's a broken gun in Call of Duty, such as like dual wielded shotguns, someone can be so bad at using them, but because they're broken, they just keep firing them and you die. And it feels bad because you're like, dang, this guy sucks, but I'm still losing to him because he's using something that's so much better than what I'm using. And that's kind of what Azirelia's kind of fell into, where it's like you just lose because you're just using a deck that doesn't have the explosion synergy that Azarelia has. And they can even make misplays, but they're not punished at all because it's just about being explosive. And I struggle to see how Blossoming Blade stops the explosion the deck does when it's just
The thing is, oh my bad.
No, you're fine when it's just Blade Dance, Blade Dance, Blade Dance. I was done there. Yeah.
The thing is, I've been on a few streams like High Masters players, and I've seen opponents misplaying but still winning, just based off the deck's power level.
Yep, that's how it goes. Like we've been,
exactly.
and it's not just Masters, because one thing that we know that they do is they don't want to overly like make their decisions based just on Masters or whatever. Like we know that, so like we want to make sure like everyone knows this isn't an issue just in Masters. Like I don't know about the lowest tiers, but I do know that from Plat up, you're playing against this deck a lot. And your opponent's misplaying and you're still losing to this deck if you're not also using it. And even if you're also using it, you're playing one of the worst skill mattering mirrors in the game. It's just like, are you attacking on the right turn? You wanna attack on 3 so that you can Deus into Azir. So What a wild change. Wow.
And also I'm really surprised they didn't touch Watcher or like Merciless Hunter, especially.
Yes, I'm a huge advocate that Merciless Hunter, and even more so too, I don't understand that, especially with this deck being just so good and the way that it is and everything going on. Once again, I get they alluded to Azir Burn and Azir Lucian. So the Azir Burn, what they're probably alluding to here is we're not gonna nerf what's it called? No, the 1-drop.
The 1-drop? Is it a Dune?
Yes, Dunekeeper. With Azir Burn, they're pretty much saying, oh yeah, Azir Burn uses Dunekeeper, so we can't nerf Dunekeeper, otherwise Azir Burn isn't a good deck no more. You guys know how that goes. That's pretty much what they're saying. And it's just like, okay, but then that just means that Azarelia gets to decimate me turn 1 and then Blade Dance all over me after that, and it just doesn't stop. Like, it just doesn't stop, and I don't know. I have trouble understanding too how like Dunekeeper being at the rate that he is, because he's used in every Shurima deck. Like Overwhelm wants to play him, Threshnasus, Azarelia, Azir Burn. Like he's used in every single Shurima deck because it feels like you're throwing by not playing him. And like Elise, this Blade Dance deck is the one deck that's not also using Merciless Hunter, because every other Shurima deck that isn't this one uses Merciless Hunter. But Dunekeeper's in every single Shurima deck. It feels better than every other 1-drop in my opinion. Doing 20% to someone's Nexus on turn 1 is insane. And I'm having trouble understanding, especially because Dunekeeper helps push out so many slower archetypes. Like, if you want Malphite to exist and be good, stop letting people do 20% Nexus health on turn 1. Like, that would help Malphite be able to exist. But, once again, I'm not a part of the dev team, so that's my thoughts on that. What about you, We the Peoples? What was the most kind of shocking to you when that either is present in this patch or isn't present?
I mean, I feel like personally, the biggest thing that I feel like everybody is saying about this patch, like Mega Goofball also said, it's more so over the like the feeling of like, are these cards ever gonna get nerfed? Like, it's like it. Okay, I don't mean to kind of take it off topic, but I feel like for a while, right? Since maybe end of Targon patch, right? We've been dealing with a lot of different cards that's just been, their power level have just been exceeding a lot of things that have to do with the game.
Yep.
And when we got this patch, right? Especially on Reddit, they were saying like, oh, everybody should just wait for this patch to drop because maybe this patch will deal with a lot of the problems that is wrong with the meta and stuff like that. And then we got it, and it was just like 4 or 5 changes that literally meant nothing. It's just like,
Yeah.
if this is what they think is really gonna change the game or change the meta or even shape what's going on, then I feel like there's like you said earlier, this is like a really really big disconnect between the player base and what we're playing on ladder and the devs. Like,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is a complete disconnect.
Yeah, and that's where I
And
get frustrated.
it's just
I have to start
yeah.
asking how much are they playing the game, because you also need to be playing if you're gonna nerf the game. But yeah, continue.
And also, like I said, I don't want to get too much on off topic because the video is about the patch notes.
Yeah,
But overall, my feelings on the patch notes is just there needed to be more changes. That's the biggest thing that I feel like everybody can agree on. Even if we didn't want to necessarily nerf the crap out of Aziralia, okay, fine. We didn't have to nerf the crap out of Aziralia, right?
yeah,
But the biggest thing is that there should have been a lot more changes to change and shape how the meta is flowing right now, because the meta is very polarized. Even if you're playing decks that counter Aziralia, they
yep,
don't necessarily counter Nasus Thresh or even Lissandra. So
yeah,
it's like it's hard to really tech a deck that you can literally play and enjoy playing. Like, that's the biggest thing, and I think if the devs don't understand that, then this is gonna be hard. It's gonna be very hard to play the game.
no, yeah, that's completely fair, and I agree with you a lot, and I was actually a little nervous because in case they did do a lot of changes, I was just nervous for other decks like Targon that's just kind of waiting for these big decks to get nerfed to then just be back to feeling a little too good, or as Draven, which is a deck that like doesn't have a lower than like 42, maybe even higher win percentage against any deck. Like, I think there's a few decks that are just right on that outside looking in to become a little bit more polarizing as well themselves, and I think as Draven is like an example of a deck that's very polarizing. Like, it's very hard for a lot of things to play into the amount of control and the way the control works, as far as just leveling Azrael and then just doing burst speed damage to your Nexus. So I was a little nervous in case they did a lot of changes, but when you do the complete opposite and you justify it in the way that you do, it just really throws a lot of people off, because yeah, I think a lot of people were ready for things to be a little different. I think a lot of people thought our voices were being heard, especially like go on Reddit. If you went on Reddit the day before this patch, you would have saw nothing but memes saying how stupid Aziralia was. And it seems like the Riot Dev team really cares about Reddit's opinion and looks at Reddit, and they responded recently on Reddit. So when Reddit's being that vocal of something, even if you want to say that, oh, streamers control the masses' opinions so much, like at the end of the day though, that's your player base. So if they aren't enjoying your game, you should probably do something about it. And trying to bandage it up with an actual bandage and not some flex tape, that like the bandages fall off after they get a little wet, and it seems like, yeah, this little bandage they put on Aziralia is just waiting for someone to just figure out the two optimal cards to replace the Blossoming Blade with, and then maybe switch to Voice of the Risens over Inspiring Martial. I'm not sure that Voice of the Risens will even be better than Inspiring Martial, personally, but I don't know. I think just a little few things people need to fine tune now with these nerfs, and the deck will be right back to where it was. So it's just like, what did you actually accomplish? And then we spoke a little less about the buffs, but Talia's biggest thing is not that her stats are bad. It's that it's hard to make a deck that works with her level up condition, considering that, one, landmarks mean you cannot block. So I guess they're saying, hey, block with your Talia more because now she got better stats. But landmarks, you're playing these things that fill up your board but cannot block, and they're using unit mana. So you're playing less units in general. And then Talia just like she levels, and then now you just got more landmarks and you still don't got really a ton of board space. So like the only deck that really is like really working with that synergy in my opinion is still just Turbo Thralls, because that's the one deck where it's all about just bursting that landmark up and then getting the huge units. So Talia's like a good oh, I got Talia right when I'm about to open, or like right when I'm about to get another thrall. But otherwise, the way she functions doesn't really work, and it especially doesn't work in a meta where a deck's blade dancing all over your face. Like, how do any landmark focused decks really work into Blade Dance? Like, yeah, you may win some matchups, but I refuse to believe that any landmark focused deck is going to be able to consistently beat Azir Aurelia. So then you're buffing decks that are bad into the main deck you just nerfed, and you made as little, or you tried to just scratch the surface with your nerfs as much as possible. So I almost feel like their buffs are counteracted by their really kind of soft nerfs. So then they canceled each other out. Like, hey, let's buff these cards that do terrible into this deck that's all over ladder, and then do very little into the deck that's all over ladder. So it just doesn't really make sense even from that standpoint. So that's where I'm just lost. I don't know what direction they're going with this. And then that's the other issue, is just the lack of communication. What direction is this feeding into? Like, I just think we need to hear more. Because I think that would help a lot. And then it would open the door for a more consistent conversation. Because I feel like we've been giving the dev team, especially recently, a little too much praise for their communication. Yes, we did hear them give their Riot's opinion of the current meta and balance. But one, that felt very defensive. It didn't feel like they took a lot of the criticisms to heart. They just took them as, well, we think things are fine for these reasons, and didn't really hear anything. It's just like one ear and out the other. So we've been giving them a little too much credit for being vocal recently. Especially, they don't really use their Twitter to speak to their community much at all, aside from when things are announced and every so often with a deck, but they haven't even really been posting decks recently. So it's just like, how are we supposed to know what they thought they were accomplishing really with this? Because yeah, we get the little paragraph about let's not nerf the other Azir decks, but that doesn't really tell us how they think that, one, like what justifies them thinking that Azir Burn and Azir Lucian stain meta decks, quote unquote meta decks. What justifies them being so important that you wouldn't still just want to do more with Azir Aurelia? Like, I think a lot of people would even advocate that they're fine with Azir Burn and Azir Lucian being worse decks if it means that Azir Aurelia is a worse deck. I think most people would say that. Furthermore, what do they think this changes for the meta with these buffs as well? Like, do they think this is now a tier 3 deck? And even if it's tier 3, do you think anyone's going to bring this to a tournament? Because I think when you make buffs, that should be the thought process. Is like, now this is a good enough deck to be brought to a tournament. Because I think ideally you'd want to see your champions played at the highest level. And I don't think this is a buff that moves the needle enough. So then, was it even worth doing? Or at least, was it worth doing but not focusing on more? Like, why don't we have a Zillion buff here? Why don't we have a Kindred buff here, a Lux buff here? A lot of champions that are just right on that outside looking in, and have been for quite a while, and instead we buffed two recent champions that neither seem like these buffs are going to really even move the needle for them. And I think that's one thing people just really want to change. Like, if you buff Lux, I feel like so many more people would be happy, because that's different. Like, now more people go to the lab and start building Lux decks. You buff Kindred, or maybe not as much so Kindred, because I feel like Kindred's issue, we talked about that earlier in the call, that no matter what, well, unless they do something significant, like Kindred works with Nasus, but Nasus already has Thresh, and that's just a significantly better deck than any Kindred deck. And then same thing if you try to do what was the other champion? We alluded to some other champion that also works better in other decks. So maybe if you do like Lux, and maybe you do like Lulu. Lulu they did that one little buff and people started playing her, and then she just fell right back out of being played. Maybe you buff Lulu, and then people can go back to the lab and start building Lulu decks. Because I haven't seen, I look at new decks being built on Mobalytics quite often, because I enjoy looking at other people's creative ideas. I haven't seen a Lulu deck be built on Mobalytics, and I don't know how long. So I think it would help to do things that actually really change things. Even if you don't want to nerf things, you don't want, because I think they may have got scared off with nerfs a little recently, because they nerfed Fiora, and what happened? the Fiora got kind of nerfed into oblivion, even though there are still mono Fiora decks because of the existence of Blade Dance. But aside from that, it got nerfed into oblivion. They nerfed Aphelios, and they actually did an initial soft nerf that didn't do anything, and then they did the nerf into oblivion by going super hard in on Temple and the Aphelios' arsenal of weapons. And Aphelios got nerfed into oblivion. Heimerdinger got nerfed into oblivion. Karma got nerfed into oblivion. So maybe they're scared off of nerfing their champions into oblivion. But I don't know. I think when you actually do things significant as far as nerfs and buffs, you make the game more fun because people like change. And you get to change just the cards that are already within the game rather than having to introduce new ones, which I feel should, in my opinion, be easier to do as far as like whatever work goes into implementing new cards and new changes. That should be easier than having to build whole new cards that synergize with Zillion. It should be easier to then just buff Zillion and make him a better card. So why not give that a try? And it feels like, yeah, there are two things. They're scared off of doing like nerfs, it feels like now, because they don't want to nerf things too hard. And then they also seem very defensive over the initial design of cards, with the fact that especially in the Reddit perception of balance. And yeah, we can if my computer wants to work here, we could go over that as soon as it switches over to Reddit, because there we go. Because yeah, this sounded, for the language we just got in this sounded very defensive. Like, oh, we think data informs our decisions, but quite often a single point of data does not tell the whole story. So what single point of data wasn't telling the whole story? That Azir Aurelia's problem wasn't Blossoming Blade. Like, most champions play rates are exceptionally high in the first week they're released, but that doesn't mean we consider live balance updates for those champions to try and counteract their high play rates only based on the first week of data. We got so much data to show that Azir Aurelia was an issue, not just week one. And they really tried to hammer in this point that, yeah, Azir Aurelia's best performing deck currently has a 52.5% win rate, and it's trending downward over time. This has been proven to be exceptionally false. This is extremely false. It continues to win in a meta trying to counter it. And we shouldn't need a counter meta to get a deck below 50%. Like a full-on counter meta. Like, that's insane. And just how many people were even piloting the deck wrong at the point of it having this win rate still. So, yeah, really crazy to me. And yeah, all we got was this soft patch to deal with it. Because, yeah, what did they say? But I do think it makes decisions like this one harder when the community calls a deck with a 52% win rate overpowered and a deck with a 49% win rate C tier, unplayable, or trash. And it's like, but that's true. Like, that is very true. And if you played against Azir Aurelia enough, you knew it was overpowered even at its 52% win rate. And that some 49% win rate decks are C tier. That's like absolutely true. So then that goes further into the disconnect that we currently have with our dev team, where we're just not perceiving the game the same as them, which is getting quite alarming at this point. And we got them saying that like Zed decks, there's a Zed deck that's good, there's a Tryndamere deck that's over 50%, we got Severe over 50%, Quinn. I will tell you right now, I played quite a bit still of Legends of Runeterra recently, and I have yet to see anyone other than myself using Quinn in a deck in the past like 2 weeks. But yet there's a Quinn deck that's over 50%, so we have to acknowledge how diverse the game is. Stuff like that feels so undermining to any complaint, because they'll just find these very arbitrary stats that we don't even really know the full details where they're coming from, which once again goes into the poor communication issue we're going through, and they'll use it to their benefit to justify why the game's still in a healthy place. And that's just not what they used to do. We did not used to be in this weird place where the dev teams justifying everything that people are complaining about, rather than using those constructive criticisms to at least show that they're trying to work with us. I would so much personally, I know everyone doesn't feel this way, but I would personally rather them try to nerf and buff multiple things. And even if it puts the meta in a worse place, it shows that they're trying and they're listening and they're hearing us, and that we can work at this together. And personally, I feel like we've reached a point where it no longer feels like that's where we're at. It's more so the devs trying to show that, no, nothing you're complaining about is the way you're perceiving it. It's not as bad. And this is why, and this is what it is. And our opinions are superior. Because it almost feels that way, that they just feel like their opinions are superior. And that's not a comforting feeling from a dev team that we felt had the opposite way of kind of going about things initially. But I don't want to dwell on the dev team too much because at the end of the day, balancing a card game is extremely hard, and I just want to focus more so on the communication. Like, we just want to hear more. Like, Elise, if you're going to make these changes, continue to talk to us. Tell us why these changes are right. Tell us what you're looking at. Tell us what you're seeing. Tell us as much details as you can, because it allows us to actually understand more. And I think part of not being frustrated or disappointed is understanding. Like, we just need to understand where you guys are all coming from. And right now we don't understand where any of these changes are coming from, considering the game we've been playing day in and day out recently. And I think most of you guys would echo that. Do any of you guys have some final thoughts as well on all of this? That's kind of where I want to leave things at. Is I want communication to come back. I just want to know how these decisions are being made, where they're coming from, what data. Just tell me the whole thing, because then I can at least understand more. And if I can understand, then we can communicate better. We can address the bigger issue, like, oh, our metrics are just coming from completely different things. That's the issue. Oh, you guys are basing everything on your initial testing rather than what happens on ladder or whatever. We can understand each other more. We can have more we can focus more on the real issues with these conversations, and then we can also hopefully get more on the same page. And understanding goes a long way with not being frustrated or disappointed, I would say. So any final thoughts from the rest of you guys here?
None at all. I think you made good points.
Okay.
Where's everyone else?
Yeah, I think we're able to say a lot, and we've talked so much about this. Where this is a seasonals patch, so these are the changes heading into seasonals. So we'll see if seasonals can even be that hype, considering that a lot of people. I can't understand how a lot of people will like, what new decks can we see when these are the changes? Probably not much, but hopefully things can continue to be hype. Hopefully we start hearing a little bit more for the dead team, considering the uproar that's currently happening online with Legends of Runeterra. And hopefully maybe they'll even hire some new people on so that they can work with the community a little bit more closely, so that we can mirror the same kind of way. We can kind of mirror each other as far as the direction we feel the game should be going, because it just feels like the devs teams are focusing on one direction, but the community is focusing on a completely different direction, and we're just straying further away from each other as each patch comes out. And that's an unfortunate thing to see, because I think most people, especially still even around the time of Worlds, and that was like post TF Fizz meta, everyone was feeling so optimistic about the future. But then we got the cross shard announcement, no more cross shard, and that really sucked, because so many people, especially at this point, have been enjoying this wonderful game with people from all around the world. So then we got some very bad news then, and then we got this new patch that came with no hot fixes or anything for TLC or Thresh Nasus, other than the Atrocity and Blighted Caretaker changes, which have, with the inclusion of Merciless Hunter, have shown to be quite insignificant. And then now we get this, and it just feels like the disappointment just keeps coming. And I don't want to be disappointed anymore by a game that I love and that I felt was heading in a super awesome direction. And I think, that's just how most people feel. So thank you guys so much for joining me for this. I don't know what else thoughts to really say other than, we just want to hear more, and we hope that patches can also come more, because if patches are going to be this conservative, then we absolutely need them more frequent. You want to be this conservative, then give them to us more frequent. If you want to continue to have patches this infrequent, then you need to change more things. And that was a tweet that Manitas recently put out there, where he was saying that one of the most frustrating things is just how few patches we're getting now, and then how conservative these said patches are as well. Like, a lot of people got into this game because of the way it was being patched, and just we've strayed quite away from what we were initially doing. So let's hope that things can change for the better. I want to try to stay optimistic somehow moving forward, because I think a lot of us still love this game, and we love the community even more so that's grown around this game. Just so many awesome, really friendly individuals, and we don't all want to try to all migrate to some other game, because that's not going to happen. Legends of Runeterra is still a great card game, but we need the devs to work with us, because it's still frustrating though, because the game is still in its infancy. So all these decisions they're making are having such huge impacts for the direction the game ends up going long term, since it's still such a young game. And yeah, we just want to get on the same page so that the game could go in a good direction, because we know that card games can become pretty polarizing really easily, and we want to try to help stop that. But if everything is going to get defended and a lot of our criticism are going to get deflected, then we're not going to get on the same page, and we're not going to be able to help with helping Legends of Runeterra get in a good place. So we'll have to see. I appreciate you guys joining in on the conversation. Please leave comments below on this video on what you guys thought of the balance patch and what you guys thought of our thoughts. You may say that everyone's complaining too much. If you feel that way, please elaborate and say how you personally felt and how you believe that these changes are significant. Would love to hear, and let me know. Let me know anything else you guys have to say about just the future of Runeterra, because this is not what I was expecting, and it's not a good look at all. When people are all over social media saying nothing but negative thoughts, especially people that are like sponsored by Riot. Like when those people are complaining, hey, it's time to look in the mirror. But that's gonna be it for me. Shout outs to We the Peoples, to Lee, and to Mega Goofball. I'll at least leave some links to anything that these wonderful people do in the description, since they joined me for this one. And you guys all have a wonderful day. Signing out from here. Peace out.